Hi and welcome to this week's GRIDGIRL Vodcast, bringing you the latest from the Spanish Grand Prix. Lots to talk about this week, so much going on in terms of paddock news, lots around different agreements, the Racing Point saga that is still going on, and bringing you the latest from this week's race. So hope you enjoy, and if you do, please don't forget to like and subscribe. So what's going on this week in the paddock? In terms of a smaller story this week, even though it was still a big story, Perez is back from his quarantine for coronavirus. So that does mean, sadly, the departure again of Nico Hülkenberg, but nice to see Checo back with the Racing Point team. He said in interview that he feels completely fine. He's been very lucky that he was asymptomatic with his coronavirus, and is just glad to be back in a racing seat. While Checo is back, rumours are still going rife about Seb's potential move to Racing Point. This was fuelled even more so last weekend with him and Otmar Zafnar taking a trip to a petrol station, of all places that you'd want to go, and then it being picked up by the media. But when Sebastian was asked in the media about this, he very much played it down, just like, you know, he likes Ferraris, we needed some petrol. So very mysterious. Could this be the kind of nail in the coffin for him going to Racing Point? Who knows? We're still waiting to hear, so hopefully that will get resolved soon and we'll find out a bit more on Sebastian's next career move. Toto Wolff hit the headlines again this week, basically having to play down rumours that he may be leaving Mercedes. Now, he has mentioned, you know, that he doesn't do a lot. He feels like he doesn't do a lot in the team. So obviously he feels like he manages the team, but he doesn't make the car, he doesn't design the car, he doesn't really do much in terms of that side of it. And, you know, it'd be interesting to see. We know that Lewis hasn't signed his contract yet for next year and is very much not really wanting to discuss it right now. And I think some of this, although maybe down to personal stuff that's going on, obviously around you know, lots going on in the world with coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, that kind of thing. I do think some of this is to do with Toto Wolff, and I think that although Lewis wouldn't necessarily leave because of Toto, I think he might if Toto's not there. So I think that's part of the ongoing discussion really at Mercedes. Mercedes also were hitting the headlines again this week with rumours from the FIA that they will be looking into removing what they call party modes or qualifying modes from cars looking forward to the weekend in Spa. So only a week or two away. Now what this means is this will probably affect Mercedes more than anybody else. So it's quite commonly known that Mercedes have a qualifying mode that they put the cars into so that they can get a higher performance out of the car during the fast laps on Quali. This is often referred to as party mode. Max Verstappen, when he's being asked about party mode, says the only party that's happening is the one on Sunday after the race, jokingly. So no party modes really for the rest of the team, just kind of Mercedes that are the ones who are known to have this. What they're looking to do is to try and bring the field a bit more back together, is to get rid of this so that it makes it easier for some of the other teams to get closer to the top and it not just be Lewis on pole every week basically, or Valtteri. It'll be interesting to see if this works. I'm not too sure if it'll make too much of a difference on the car, if I'm honest, because, you know, ultimately if they still qualify first, even without the party mode, then it's not going to make much difference to the races, unless there's like instances, safety cars, strategics going on. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. The rumour mill has been continuing again this week around Alex Albon. Many people coming to his defence this week, actually, and it was interesting to hear him interviewed on In the Pink, and you know, he said he's not actually had a bad start to the year. I think actually when you look at the results, for someone who is in a second place team potentially, he's not done that bad, but he's not done that great either. I think he was very close, obviously, to winning the first race of the season. It was very unfortunate that he was took out by Lewis. However, his qualifying has let him down, which has meant he's not been able to gain the traction on the places that he could get. So obviously you see Max has had a couple of podiums, he's done quite well this season. However, Max Verstappen is well known as the teammate killer, is his nickname. You know, killed off Pierre Gasly. Ricardo wasn't a big fan of driving with him. You know, so really the question is, if Alex went back to Toro Rosso, or they got rid of Alex, who fills that seat? Because not many people really want to touch that Red Bull seat with the barge pole other than Sebastian Vettel. So it would be interesting to see. Do I think they'll bring Pierre back? I'm not sure. And it was interesting this week, during one of the interviews, I think it was with Martin Brundle, they were talking about, obviously, AlphaTauri is an Italian-based team, Pierre is French, as we know, and he feels like he's better suited to the team. It's a bit more, not laid back, but a bit more kind of a team that works well for young drivers. And I think you see Pierre blossoming there in a way that he didn't at Red Bull. And I think the Red Bull kind of atmosphere is very different because they are the top team. They are one of the top teams. And with that comes this like bigger expectation from the of the drivers. So I think it'll be different to see how things pan out over the next few weeks. We do know Red Bull have a track record of not just dropping Alex from the team, but dropping other people from the team. Remember, Alex was dropped from their young driver programme when he was younger. He had to fight to get his way back in. But Alex is a very talented and capable driver, and we saw this in Silverstone. Some amazing overtakes, and it'll just be interesting to see. I hope for Alex that he does get to keep his seat. Because he's a very nice young man. He really has worked hard. He's had a lot of stuff going on in life while he's, pursued his F1 career, and really that's testament to his resilience and strength. Also very much this week, if you've seen any of the videos going all over Instagram, Alex is also repping his pets. So for anyone who doesn't know, Alex Albon has 5 cats and a dog, and if you want to follow his pets on Instagram, as he's been shouting out all over YouTube, Facebook interviews, Twitter, it is Albon_pets. You will find them on there, and you will find pictures of not just Alex, but Alex's cat that he would bring to the F1 stand, and these other cats that are on there too. Possibly still the biggest ongoing debacle this week is the FIA protest against Racing Point, and how it continues. So this week we have seen basically a split in the teams. Quite a few teams have dropped out of their protests against the initial ruling that Racing Point could continue with the parts on the car. They were kind of in the wrong, but not really. Who knows? Still a bit vague. And that obviously they would find the large sum of, I think it was €500,000 or pounds, I always forget which way around it is, and the docking of the 15 points from the championship. What this means now is we have Ferrari and Renault who are still protesting. against the ruling, saying it was too lenient, and that, you know, how can they still be allowed to race with these parts on the car? What they've done is wrong. It is illegal, even though it isn't illegal because it wasn't illegal when they did it, but it is illegal now because they're listed parts, but who knows, because it's all grey. And Racing Point are still on the stance of, you know, you can't really dock us points for doing something, and fine us for doing something that was legal and legitimate and a non-listed part when we did it. So it'll be interesting to see. Quite a few teams dropped out of the protest, so you see the likes of McLaren and Williams very much dropped out quite quickly in terms of protesting the FIA's decision. However, the FIA has come out and said that actually it probably needed to provide more clarity in the rules, and they're looking to do this to kind of bring more clarity to what teams can and can't copy in the future going into not just 2021, but obviously in the further rule changes that are happening now in 2022. So qualifying saw some interesting moves, interesting choices in tyres, as the teams yet again were struggling with the compounds this weekend, especially with the heat. Obviously Barcelona is usually earlier on in the year, and teams do test there in the winter, but the difference between the temperature in the winter when they test and the temperature now was probably around 20 degrees difference. So obviously massive difference for the teams to cope with, especially with the tyre compounds. We saw pretty bad days for Ferrari, who struggled to even qualify at all into Quali 3. Charles only gained P9, Sebastian P11. Sebastian's really struggling, and I think quite a few interesting things have come out this week. So people have reminded us that, you know, Sebastian is a talented driver. He's a 4-time world champion. He definitely is not getting the support he needs from the team. I think that's clear. Other things that have been mentioned this week about Felipe Massa, when Ferrari decided they didn't want him in the team anymore, and how they did used to sabotage him with, you know, championing Fernando Alonso because he was the golden child at the time, and I think that really shows. So it shows that Ferrari probably aren't giving him the support he needs. We also saw McLaren have a bit of a struggle this weekend. Again, they were really struggling with the tyres this weekend. Barcelona doesn't really suit them. You know, Zach Brown has said this in interviews that Barcelona is not one of their strongest tracks. You know, Carlos was in P7, Lando in P8, so not the best we've seen from the two guys this season, but you know, still a decent result for a midfield team. Kimi made it into Q2 for the first time this year, so you know, nice seeing Alfa Romeo up there. We've not seen them really in Quali 2 at all, as George Russell has been stealing limelight recently. However, Williams did struggle a little bit this weekend. Again, I think this was a lot to do with the tyre compounds. They're really struggling to get them to fit how they suit the car to them. Obviously the 1-2 for Mercedes, no surprise there. I think Toto was quite surprised because he thought the Red Bulls would be a bit stronger than they were. They weren't, so again I think Red Bull admitted, Christian even said this, that they were struggling with the tyres a little bit like everyone, so I think it was a bit of a struggle to get that balance right with the tyres. However, we did see an improvement from Albon, so he made it into P6, and we also saw Max out qualifying him again this weekend in P3. So the race in Spain was actually quite an uneventful race this weekend, especially after the last 2 weekends in Silverstone, which saw, you know, exploding tyres, people going off, people really struggling, lots of overtaking. We didn't see a lot of that this weekend in Spain. I think we saw the Ferraris really struggle. So unfortunately, the spin otter this weekend was our good friend Charles Leclerc. So quite surprising to see Charles make a mistake this week, but ultimately it actually ended his race, and he was the only DNF of the race. So a shame to see that for Charles, but you know, just shows that the Ferrari's not even suiting him that well at the minute. Sebastian did a little bit better this week, finishing in P7. However, you know, still not what we would expect to see from Sebastian. And I think, you know, we've obviously mentioned earlier about the support he's getting from Ferrari. I think, you know, hopefully we can see Seb in a better place. He was voted driver of the day by obviously the F1 fans. So I think that did give him a little bit of a smile at the end of the day. Pierre Gasly had quite a strong drive this weekend, and as I said before, he's really suited well to that, to the AlphaTauri. I was going to say Toro Rosso, then AlphaTauri, and he finished P9, so he's had a couple of good points finishes now, in comparison to Danny Kvyat, who just is fighting a bit with the car at the moment. Albon didn't have a fantastic race. Now usually we see that Alex does better on a Sunday than he does on the Saturday. However, this week he really struggled with the tyres. I think at one point he had all 3 compounds on of tyre for the weekend, and none of them were just suiting the balance of the car at all. And this is something that Red Bull really need to fix on the car if they want Alex to start performing. The balance on the car hasn't been right for him for a while. He's openly admitted this. He said he's struggling with his quali. They're trying to set up the car too much for the race, so that he's got the right balance in the race, but it's not giving him what he needs in quali, which, you know, isn't helping him, because if he can qualify higher, he's then not stuck in all the traffic. He also did get stuck in a lot of traffic this weekend, with cars and a lot of into midfield battles with kind of the McLarens, Gasly, Seb, Charles before he had his little spin. So it's, you know, not that midfield is not a great place for him to be. Ideally, if he can qualify up to 4th or 5th, he can do better from there, because he's not got all that traffic behind him, potentially get a clean race for him. However, talking about 4th and 5th, we saw the racing points in 4th and 5th. So great result from them, which is not surprising because the Mercedes did incredibly well at this track. So, you know, them being up the pink Mercedes, I think it was not unexpected that they did that well. We also saw teams really struggling with the tyres. As I said, strategy was key for them this week to try and get, you know, quick pit stops to get these, you know, overtakes on pit stops. We saw the Red Bull team actually, you know, credit where it's due to their mechanics. They are probably the best mechanics on the grid. We saw both stops were pretty much bang on 2 seconds. So it just shows that that relentless practice of the pit stop can be really vital in trying to overtake, you know, and they are pretty much the best team on the grid in terms of the mechanical side. We also saw, you know, Max being very vocal on the radio this week around his strategy, especially with the tyres. And, you know, basically saying, like, do you need me to say it again? So, you know, he doesn't want to drive like a grandma, and this week he, you know, wants to repeat it for you so it's clear his tyres are not okay. You know, he's been very vocal on strategy recently, has Max, and I think he's very directive in what he wants from the team and the car, which is working to his strength at the minute. We saw this, he finished P2, so, you know, splitting the Mercedes there, and, you know, he's doing really well. He's kind of bringing that fight now to Hamilton, and as we know, Red Bull as a team tend to start the season off a little bit slow and then really bring it forward kind of middle into the end of the season really, and, you know, show their true talent kind of halfway through the season. Obviously the 2 Mercedes, P1 and P3. No surprise there. I think even Toto Wolff said prior to the race that the only person who really could spoil their party this weekend was Max, and, you know, they were right. And then, yeah, poor day for Renault. Daniel Ricciardo finishing outside the top 10. Ocon again outside the top 10. So no points this weekend for Renault, which was quite a shock because they've had some quite good performances recently, especially Daniel. He did really well in the second Silverstone race. So a bit of a surprise to see him at the back. Next week we will be on break, obviously, as we've got 2 weeks until Spa. But until then, we will see you in 2 weeks' time to enjoy the next F1 update.